This is Mike Tatarski, host of the Vietnam Weekly podcast, coming to you from Ho Chi Minh City, where it's unbelievably hot still. The global population is expected to hit 10 billion people by the middle of this century, meaning we'll need to roughly double food production by then. Under the current food system, that would mean more cows, pigs, chickens, and fish, along with all of the space, energy, and inputs they consume, not to mention the waste they produce and the moral issues presented by industrial farming. And this is within the additional context of climate change, which will dramatically impact traditional food-producing regions in the coming decades, while the livestock industry is a massive source of greenhouse gas emissions itself. The need for alternative proteins, therefore, is increasingly urgent, though there is plenty of debate over what forms those should come in. Plant-based proteins like soy have been part of diets in some parts of the world for centuries, if not longer, and are increasingly popular in countries where it's not traditionally found on menus. Go to any supermarket in the United States or numerous other countries, for example, and you'll find a bonanza of alternative plant-based meats. What about insects? In 2013, the Food and Agriculture Organization published a report titled Edible Insects: Future Prospects for Food and Feed Security that marks something of a paradigm shift in the conversation around, to put it bluntly, eating bugs. Certain insects, FAO researchers found, deliver major nutritional benefits with a tiny environmental impact. Crickets, for example, require 12 times less feed than cattle and emit no methane, while mealworms have similar protein and vitamin counts to fish. That report eventually attracted entrepreneurs like Bicky, today's guest and the co-founder of Cricket One. I met Bicky and her business partner, Nam Nguyen, no relation, back in 2019 while reporting a feature on insects as a potential alternative protein source. I've included a link to that story in the show notes. I visited their farm and processing facility in Bin Phuc and tried their product, at the time, a protein-rich powder made from crickets. Crucially, as discussed in this episode, the idea isn't for people to eat whole insects. I came away something of a convert, and the science is hard to ignore, though that doesn't mean I'm using cricket powder on a regular basis, at least not yet. This is a fascinating conversation that took one very unexpected turn, which you'll hear. So we discussed Cricket One's background and why Vietnam is the perfect base for this business, the European Union approving Cricket One's products as a novel food and the bizarre backlash that's generated from some corners, the company's ongoing push into Singapore, and where Bicky sees the business going as we face the need to shift our diets in response to climate change and the growing global population. As always, if you have any guest suggestions or feedback on the show, email me at matatarski@gmail.com. Let's get to my conversation with Bicky. Bicky, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Mike, for having us today.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you again. It's been a little while. So I introduced kind of Cricket One before we started chatting for everybody, but I'm curious, why, obviously Cricket is in the name of your business, but why did you and Nam, your co-founder, why did you decide to pursue crickets as an alternative source of protein?
So I think the story dated back to more than 7 years ago over a drinking table. Very sexy, not very beautiful story. So it dated back then, and during that time, we just make our individual exit from another tech company. And then we will try to figure out what we would do next. And then we came across the different options and so on. So there's something very intriguing, really make us intrigued was the FAO report about six-legs protein. And come to six-legs protein, of course, it's like when we talk about animal proteins or protein in general, we have either plant-based like soy, pea, legumes, and now it's coming up with like yeast proteins or seaweed algae proteins. So the rest of the other type protein is coming from animals. So it's either like 2 legs or 4 legs. And this part, the name is legs protein. So it's quite interesting, right? So when we dive more into that report, so then we got really enlightened with the potentials of insect protein. So we decided to go ahead with that because we believe Vietnam would be the best locations to have this industry started and potentially to become a mainstream sectors in the whole protein industry, but also setting up his own market for like cricket protein. So we started from there. But actually, before we settled down with cricket, we did also look into different type of insects. So we look into like, because in that report, they also mentioned like mealworm, buffalo worm, and black soldier fly larvae. But on the legal perspective back then, this type of insect would not be allowed to farm commercially or in the larger than research scale. But Vietnam also export a lot of agricultural products, and also, it's like we also export a lot of rice, or like mealworm, buffalo worm, and also coconut. I think those combination doesn't give a very beautiful and healthy and risk-free scenery. So we nailed down with cricket, and so far here we are.
Yeah, and we'll get to more of that story. But you mentioned you thought Vietnam would be a good location. I mean, obviously, you and Nam are both Vietnamese, so that makes sense to be here. But why? What advantages does Vietnam have for this?
So cricket is very much a native to tropical countries, and the perfect climate for cricket farming, it should be somewhere around 28 to like 34 degree, but the best would be like 22, 34 degree. So by farming here in Vietnam, we don't need to invest so much money into a very heavy equipped shed house to keep the cricket warm, to set a certain fixed temperatures to stimulate the growth of the cricket. So, and also we have a lot of like access into the agricultural byproducts that are available here in this country. So in all combinations with that, we believe having cricket here gonna make it more competitive in terms of pricing, in terms of like environmental impact, compared with we're having cricket farms somewhere else.
Yeah, and you mentioned environmental impact. So again, you don't have to keep the animals warm, or the insects warm. That helps. What are some of the other environmental benefits of farming crickets or producing crickets?
So, cricket is proven to be a very sustainable and efficient source of protein for our growing populations. And also now we are like talking a lot about climate change, which is actually happening. And then we talk about the distress of the food system, where we have been heavily dependent on different like natural resources like water and land. And then this is an indirect part of protein turned to protein that we could consume, for example, with like chicken and pig or cow farming. So cricket, they very efficiently converting feed into edible protein. That's why they require very much less feed compared to the other conventional livestock farming. For example, is that with our current food conversion rate, it means like how many kilos of input feed giving us a kilo of cricket. So the ratio we're having right now is 1.7 kilo of input feed, we can have 1 kilo of cricket, compared to chicken, which is around like 2.2, 2.5. And then with pig, it's way more. And of course, like if we talk about beef, then the number is going to be like 3-digit number. Cricket also require very minimal amounts of water. And then because of that, it makes cricket very much environmental friendly. It doesn't let along with amounts of like nitrogens and CO2 emissions into the environment compared to, let's say, it's like beef industry or dairy industry. And then the last thing is like cricket, they had a very, very short life cycle. So around like 40 to 42 days, you can have already one harvesting and months for the other livestock. So cricket, they have a very efficient reproduction rate. So that's why it's also very easy for us to build colonies and also to lead to some sort of like industrial productions. And because we farm everything indoor, with the whole climate change matter, it would not affect the productions.
Yeah, so back in 2019, I visited your facilities at the time in Binh Phuc province, to north of where we are in Ho Chi Minh City. And at the time, the kind of central facility, I guess, was kind of a large warehouse with crickets in like rub plastic bins, and there were some small farms with like local residents raising some crickets of their own. How have your operations changed since 2019?
It sounds so nice. Your descriptions like a massive warehouse with plastic bin. because we do have a lot of people asking whether like we farm cricket free range. So they imagine it's like get into a shed house and then cricket are thrown on the floor flying around.
Right.
So yeah, I think it doesn't work like that. So I think it was quite a major milestone end of like 2019, 2020. And of course is with the whole like COVID thing. So
Yep.
it had a lot of change after that. Especially it's like 2020 was the mark of Cricket One being break even.
Mm.
And then since then, we are a profitable insect company. And I would be very confident to say that we are the only profitable insect company right now in the whole entire industry globally. So there's a lot of major change. For example, it's like in 2019, you saw broccoli is a 2,000 square meter farm with a some small satellite farms surrounding. But now we have built more central farm, and then the standard size is like 2,500 square meter, 3,000 square meters, and it's a real vertical because we stack it up to 4 layers, and then we also implement a lot of like patented technologies that been granted recently into the farming practices. So I'm very happy to share you some more footage of our new facilities. So regarding to the processing, our input cricket from our farms include our own farm, also our satellite farms. We're handling about 150 tons of cricket a month. Don't ask me how many of them. Because like it doesn't matter. It's like maybe I think maybe you are very good at math.
No.
And we are processing our input cricket at our 2 factory now. So last year September we put into operations our new factories, and the capacity is 3,000 tons of finished protein a month. A year. That would be relatively input around like 16,000 tons of cricket. So in that factories, we focusing into B2B ingredients. So we harvest the cricket and then we process them into different type of powder, also texturized cricket proteins and cricket oil. And then we upgrade our first factory into more like snack or semi-snack productions. So it could be like any like chips, corn chip, rice chips, or tapioca starch chips. And we're also looking also doing like cereal meals, also meat extrusions. So it's quite a major thing.
Mm.
And in 2020, we officially put Vietnam into the list of country that approved to export cricket into European Union. So it's quite a big major milestone for us. And actually, we make it very much proud of what we are trying to do, because like for Vietnam exporting animal protein to Europe, so far we could only do everything in water, like aquaculture, like fish, shrimp, and so on. But cricket the first and only inland animal protein that we could export to Europe. And then in 2022, there was a big news coming. So we also got authorized for the Novel Food Certificate. So it means like we can freely market and sell cricket protein to entire Europe. There's only actually 2 companies get authorized for cricket proteins. Cricket One from Vietnam and also the other one from the Netherlands.
Yeah, and that kind of leads well into my next question, which was going to be, I'm sure some people are hearing us talk about crickets and being like, well, how do I eat them? Maybe they're picturing just whole crickets. That's not really the case. But I mean, you mentioned powders and chips, for example. So how are your products used?
We are not trying to push hard on consumer to consume the entire cricket. As you said, it's like in our whole history of click-tree, we also consume the whole fish or fish fillet, the whole chicken, only chicken breast. But for insect protein, pushing for the whole some insect might not be the right time. Mm-hmm. But we did see it's quite a major shift from the consumer's acceptance. For example, it's like 6 years ago, we couldn't sell any single piece of whole cricket. But for the past 3 years, around summer seasons, winter, New Year season, we relatively have the same amounts of exporting whole cricket to Europe and to the US compared to the powder. So they make it into popcorn, they make it into some sort of like seasoned cricket. But then the rest of other clients of ours is that they include cricket protein into different applications like staple food, like noodle, pasta, pizza, bread, and also like a pre-mixed baking flour, and also very like widely included in the snack industry. So like crackers, chips, and buff snack and so on. But then another major applications that we only see the growth but not shrinking is the sport nutritions into like protein shakes, energy bar, and also like protein supplements for like not only sport person but also people looking for like healthier lifestyle, reducing meat consumptions. So, and then we also like expand our product portfolio to supply the market with the texturized cricket proteins. So that's very common term. It's called texturized vegetable protein, like from soy or pea or legume. So we leverage that by making a hybrid product combining cricket and also those plant-based protein to make the nutritional profile more complete, eliminate the soy aftertaste or unpleasant taste from those like TVP, like texturized vegetable protein. And those products has been quite a big success in Europe. Like our client turn it into jerky, and then they sell it at the gas stations, also market. So instead of like chewing on beef jerky, and then you also chewing on like cricket jerky. We also have client included into the burger, so we at those like high-end restaurants, sausage and meatball. Actually, we also invested a lot into R&D to diversify and the application, so to enhance the cricket protein to be more adaptable across the industry. And good news come back was last year December we launched Rec, which is our retail line, starting the whole season cricket. But the purpose of that product is to create an awareness about cricket protein, to create some sort of like social stun, debatable discussions, media attention. So after 3 months launching that, the whole cricket under Rec name, we got to what we need, which is the association between high protein with cricket. And then we stopped that product, let the market try, and then we launched our cricket tapioca stash or bánh phồng dế in Vietnamese, and it's a huge boom. Like less than 3 months, we have our crackers like sold to most of the cinemas and entertainment centers in Vietnam. We're also trying to get the product on the shelves of the supermarket and convenience store.
Oh, interesting.
And we also got interest, actually a pre-order to export to Singapore and also to the US. So surprisingly, it's a big achievement for a young new crackers. And I think we have the potential to really like go head to head with the other majors, global FMCG. They might have everything in potato, and everyone can do everything in potato, corn, or wheat or rice based snack. But Rec or Cricket One is the only one has cricket based snack.
Yeah, I've seen, or I've had the Rec. It was cool to see, and also I remember probably a couple years ago now, you invited me to have one of the burgers made from cricket powder as well,
Yeah,
which it was tasty, I will say. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned Singapore. I saw there was Nikkei Asia had. I think you spoke to Nikkei Asia sometime in the last month or two about kind of expanding to Singapore. What are your plans there, and what do you hope to achieve?
So Singapore is a very potential market because like we very much share the Asian food cultures, and
Mm.
and they also have bánh phồng dế, like bánh phồng, okay? But over there they call it keropok. Most of the Singapore people being told by their doctor not to consume too much keropok because everything they with keropok, but then it causes high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes and everything. So we provide them with the solutions that they can keep going eating keropok, but then they don't have to leave any impact on their health. So the welcoming that we receive from the Singaporean market is surprisingly even faster than what we're having here in Vietnam. So we see Singapore as a very strategic market for us. Why is that? Among Asian countries, Singapore is a pioneer in regulating insect protein. So they make it black or white. So if it's when they make it black or white, it means if you are qualified, you in. If you're not qualified, you out. So it gained a very strong confidence in the consumers, in the retailers, that this product are proven to be safe and endorsed by the government for consumption. So for a brand like us, it's very easy, and also it's very very beneficial for us to enter the market. There are some market that we can also active in gray zone, but when it comes to the gray zone, there's a very big bottleneck for us to scale into the major mainstream channel. And that's why we want to focus in Singapore as a very much strong showcase that can roll out to the other countries, like neighbor countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, or even like Chinese-speaking market. But at the end of the day, we focus very much into the Vietnamese market, where it's just our home country. And then for the past 7 years, there's no single kilo of cricket protein consumed in the country. And Vietnam is a very much growing market. And then we have the populations that we focus and target. But that population that grows, not shrinking. So I think at the end of the day, when we talk about food security, when we talk about climate change, actually Asian or Southeast Asia very much the place receive most of the distress caused by those macro issues.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about crickets or insects. I know maybe for some people it might sound whimsical or silly. I don't know. But, as we're speaking, the Mekong Delta, for example, is experiencing severe drought and saltwater intrusion impacting rice and fruit crops, all sorts of things. So these are very serious. If you can farm protein on less land with fewer inputs, that's really important. And I mean, kind of on that, I guess in a similar vein, I saw that Cricket won. You recently one of the winners of the Livability Challenge 2024 from Temasek in Singapore, I suppose. What did that entail, and what does it mean that you were one of the winners?
So the Livability Challenge is I think the largest Asian innovation award, and it's endorsed and then given by Temasek, which is one of prestigious financial institutes in Asia and also in all over the world. So the criteria of selections and curations are very strict and extremely high. So what we did is that we proposed a solutions that can tackle those issues that we just mentioned about like climate change and food security. But the main goal is to get into a very sustainable world where we can balance out, because there's no way we could reverse what we've done or what's happening. In that project, they have 2 tracks. One is food nutrition, in which Cricket won that track. And then the other one is for the sustainable energies. And that one was given to a Dutch company who turned cooking oil into lightweight aviation fuel. So there was like over 1,000 applications from across like 100 different countries. And so actually it's very much a national proud for us. Like we could win such a global scale award like that. And we actually have a very practical plan to use the fund. So it's a no string attached rise money. So we can focus more into how to level up and enhance the sensory profile, the nutritional profile, and the performance of cricket protein to make it more closer to what we are having. For example, it's like if we are perceiving cricket protein should be in the creamy light color, then cricket protein shouldn't be far from there. And then we are going to improve the practical side, the water holding capacity, to make it easy for the food manufacturers to include it in their recipe, shorten down the R&D process, and also to make the final product tastier, healthier, and toward more like functional, eat less for more kind of solutions. And then the second part of the R&D, we're going to increase the the consumption incidents and also occasions by including cricket into wet product. So imagine it's like most of the meat replacement product right now is coming from a dry farm, and then we have to rehydrate it, and then we start mixing it. So we want to explore the high moisture extrusions, that we can have a piece of fresh meat or a piece of minced meat, So we can turn it into burger, meatball, sausage, pasta sauce, stew meat. And with these technologies, it's proven that going to improve the mouthfeels of the products. Because if we call it meat replacement, it should be far from what meat provide in terms of chewing motions and the taste and flavor of the product. And we're going to use it to commercialize a small line to realize our R&D.
So, I mean, you mentioned how you see some of the challenges, I guess, with alternative proteins. I'm from the U.S. Like, there are debates about alternative meats and all those sorts of things. So, I'm sure you get this question, or maybe you meet somebody and you say what your company does, and they're like, "Crickets, really?" What do you tell maybe people who are skeptical about insect protein?
Very good questions. I understand it in a way that we normally do. If people have an open-minded, then it's worth our time to convert people to have the same belief and same vision that we have. But if someone is so skeptical in the way that rather convert them, we could convert another 5 or 10 people with the same amount of effort. Then we would focus more into the group that with an open arm that embrace innovations, appreciate the solution that can make an impact on our surrounding. And then the skeptical group should be converted by people surrounded them.
Mm.
I'm not trying to sound like I don't care about our client or our consumers or our tech consumers, but more about how to use our effort efficiently. Just imagine that if I had to talk to 100 people and then 50 people give me the face that really hurt me deep inside, brought me to pieces, like what we received during the news broke out about Cricket One got authorized for the European Union foods, novel food. So we got a lot of attack from conspiracy theory groups and people who are so skeptical about it. I could have another episode talking about what happened to us. But at the end of the day, PR is PR. Attention is always good. Going back to your questions, we do care, and of course, the more people accept it, the better we make impact on the surrounding. But it's so we would really tell people more about the benefit of the health, the nutrition, and how it tastes like. And then the last would be the sustainable angle. Because like at the end of the day, if the product is not excited or interesting and beneficial for the consumer, they would not try. But when they try out of curiosity, then the product should and must taste good for them to come back. So this is how we can get our market and build a very stable and sustainable growth. And that's why the role of people like us is to constantly non-stop improving our ingredients. And then for Rec or the other similar company who include cricket in their product, our biggest goal is to make the product tasty, flashy, and true value. It means if we say it's nutritional, it should be nutritional. A lot of companies, like they try to get 1 or 2% of cricket into their product, but does give any value or different in our beliefs to that. And then it has to be tasty because you just cannot keep selling the beautiful story and then the product doesn't taste good or doesn't give any value or cannot justify why you have to pay extra dollar for an innovative, sustainable product. And then for the skeptical one, I would just be predicting the health benefit and environmental impact to them. And then at the end of the day, the surrounding accept it, then we hope that the surrounding could move them.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but you piqued my curiosity. What, like these conspiracy theories, what were the theories?
So the news broadcast, so European Union, they make an announcement. They also publish one regulation dedicated for our company authorizations. So we have our name and our own regulation, like EU regulations document, like published. So when it's broke out, we receive in total in 3 months about 750 inbound requests. The first month, 50% was real interest, and 50% people calling us like they want to burn us alive. And then they wish like we're going to be hit by thunderstorm and then our factory set on fire.
What?
People think I'm the descendant of Leonardo da Vinci, or we are part of the Illuminati, and then I might have a tattoo of a triangle with an eye somewhere on my foot sole or at the back of my head. Publish our address and then also our pictures. And sometimes people ask us to shove cricket into our ass.
Jesus.
And one time, it's not long ago, I got attacked in person, not in Europe, but by a European person in Saigon. That why I'm trying to feed people with this. This is full of like cancerous elements. And they talk about chitins here and there. It's completely against the science and everything. And then they question the whole entire food system of Europe. And then they think that our investment will make from Nazis or from Jewish, like very super anti-Semitic comments. And then they think we ripe the lady, the Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah, the EU president.
So the first 2 weeks, I got really emotional attacked by that, even my colleagues. But then after that, we realized that actually we need this kind of thing so we could have an opportunity to be published on the major main news stream, talking about the benefit of cricket, talking about why we do it. And then from the second month onward, most of the inbound requests was the real interest. So we were all over the news from the Netherlands, Germany, UK, Italy, Romania, like entire Europe, even somewhere in Asia. So they quote the news. So for us, at the end of the day, it was quite interesting. But then we do see more benefit to have the opportunity to tell people what we're doing rather than feel sorry about what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that happened. It's crazy that it would happen for something so uncontroversial. Well, obviously some people don't think think it is controversial, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised in this day and age. If I get any angry emails about this episode, I guess I'll let you know. But so I guess to end on a more positive note, you've kind of talked about how much that's changed for Cricket One over the years. A lot of really positive developments, expanded facilities, EU approval, and moving into Singapore. What do you kind of hope to see over the next couple of years for the company?
My hope for the next couple of years is like there will be sessions where product with cricket or insects in general, fortified product, have a place on the shelf to market with the whole session. So it would not be at the bottom of the shelf or at the corner somewhere, but it would be a men's shelf in the hallway of the supermarket. We wish to see that people start consuming cricket burger, cricket meat, stir-fry meatball with cricket. And we have 7 days a week. Everyone can be flexitarian. Everyone can be ento-vegan. Everyone can be diverse diet eater by having 2 days with animal protein, inland animal protein, 3 days with in-water protein, 1 day with plant, and the rest of 2 days with crickets or insects in general. So we don't believe into having the entire market, the entire population dependent on one source of protein. But we believe in harmonizing what we are having. Because at the end of the day, we might not have very soon the luxury to consume beef steaks. Yes, whenever we want. So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's a noble goal. I think we could all, I enjoy a good meat dish like a lot of other people, but it is good to, be more flexible and understanding of the environmental impacts of, what we're consuming. Well, Bicky, thanks so much for joining me. It's been really fascinating to watch Cricket One grow over the last few years. Definitely continuing to keep an eye on you guys moving forward. And thanks again for taking some time to talk to me.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity to tell the story about Cricket One and what cricket can do good for the society, for the planet, and also for every single individual in us.
That's it for this week's episode of the Vietnam Weekly podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate or review the show on your preferred podcast platform, and see you next week.